It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in, tune in, tune in, tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Before we jump in, if you're on YouTube, make sure you like, make sure you share, subscribe. If you're on audio, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and review. It takes just a moment and it helps us out a whole lot. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. All right. So we have a two-time guest on the show today. We have Justin Green out of Philadelphia. Justin was our guest on episode 94 a little over a year ago. Really, really great conversation. So looking forward to the second part of the conversation. Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me, man. I definitely appreciate it.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So for those who perhaps didn't listen to your first episode, can you give just a quick overview of just your background and how you got into real estate? And I'll make sure we link episode 94 in the show notes as well, if they want to listen to the whole thing too.
Okay, cool. Yep. So I'm a former high school teacher. And so I started out teaching. I love teaching. And so I was a full-time teacher. And then around 2011, there were some threats of layoffs in the Philadelphia school district. At that time, I was an administrator as well too, with the Philadelphia school district. So because of the layoffs or threats of layoffs, I figured I need to figure out how do I provide for my family without depending on my 9-to-5 job. So I started looking into real estate, right, as a viable option to provide for my family, and found my first deal in 2012. So my first deal was a rental property, and then from there, because of how the deal was structured for the rental property, I figured out that if I was going to continue to invest in real estate, that I had to figure out a better way to finance deals, right? To be creative in my deal making. So that's when I started targeting off-market deals, and then eventually found the different strategies such as wholesaling, the BRRRR strategy, and fixing and flipping, right? Where I use those strategies to be what I call a deal engineer, right? So a deal engineer is one that uses creativity and savvy to really buy and sell any property. So I started doing wholesaling, where I find these deals at a discounted price and then sell them, and then started doing fixing and flipping. And then eventually, as I grew, I wanted to build my portfolio. So I started using the BRRRR strategy, and doing that strategy and moving forward with that. And it helped me really look at creative financing and then also building my portfolio. So now we're here today.
Love it. Love it. It's funny. The last episode is called How to Become a Real Estate Deal Machine. So it's funny that you mentioned being a deal engineer, because that's what you are. So that's why I named the episode that in the last time, because I'm like, man, this guy just has so many tricks in his bag, so many different ways to acquire properties. So that's awesome, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And I think that's the foundation, right? I think if you can find a good deal, you're ahead of the game, right? Because once you find a good deal, then you have options, right? So when you find a discounted deal, if you find a deal, $30,000 less than what it should be, right? Now you can figure out, well, do I really want to fix and flip this? Do I want to wholesale it? What do I want to do with it? But if you continue to buy properties at a retail price, then you're limited to what you can do with the property.
Definitely. I want to talk a little more about that, because there's this debate. We see it every day. Some people, I'm buying on the MLS at retail. That's it. That's what I want to do. Whereas other people are like, well, you should be looking for discounted properties in distress. Can you talk about your thoughts on that further, and just the advantages of buying distressed properties or properties at a discount?
Right. So I think that whether you're buying a property on an MLS, retail, or off market, I think the number one thing is the numbers have to make sense for you. It has to make sense, right? Because listen, people are still buying deals on the MLS, right? I know developers that are building new construction and buying deals on the MLS for sure, and they're making money. But I think that the numbers have to make sense for you. So for example, for me, I'm a developer, but I don't have my own in-house crew. So a developer that is building new construction can have his crew in-house, and the project budget would come under my budget because I'm using a general contractor. So for him, he may be able to offer 10 grand more on a property where I can't do that because I know I have to use a general contractor and pay that contractor. So the numbers have to make sense. I think the advantage of buying a property off market is that you typically are buying a property at a discounted price, right? And when you're buying it off market, now let me say this. If you're buying it off market and you're handling the deal, then you have more options. But sometimes you can buy from a wholesaler, which is totally fine as well too. It's just that the wholesaler in that case is managing the entire deal, right? So I think the advantage of buying it off market is that you should get it at a discounted price. And in doing it that way, you begin to build, rapport and relationships with other people. So that way you can say, hey, you got any more off market deals? Let me know. Send them my way. So I think, the advantage of buying off market is finding it at a discounted price and then having more options with it being off market.
Love it. Love it. And there are so many resources out there, so many softwares and things of that nature. What are your top ways that, let's say, the last year, especially with everything that's been changing in the real estate world, what are some ways you've been able to still source some of those off-market deals lately?
Yeah, so I'm really big on using data, right? So data is a great way to find deals, meaning like you're looking at properties that could be tax delinquent. You're looking at properties that may have a lien on them, right? So I use PropStream. So you can use PropStream. I do have like a 7-day free trial. You can go to datafromjustin.com and get a 7-day free trial of PropStream. So PropStream is a data source where it filters like, tax delinquent in a certain zip code. You can look at senior owners, foreclosures, things of that nature. So PropStream is a good data point. I think the other piece is driving for dollars. So driving for dollars is when you're driving around or could be walking around and you're looking for properties that look distressed or vacant lots, right? And then from there, you're doing some research and you're contacting a property owner and seeing if they want to sell. Now, this is definitely hard work. So it's not like you're going to get a deal right away. It takes consistency, hard work, knowing how to talk to the owner, knowing how to find the owner. So those are all things you have to really figure out. But those are the strategies that I'm using to find off-market deals. Now, once you start building your business, you can then hire staff to say, hey, I used to do this. I'm going to train you on how to drive for dollars. Now I'm going to outsource it. I'm going to give it to you. And now they're doing it for you.
Love it. Love it. One of the things you mentioned was tax delinquent properties. So in that situation, if you're on PropStream, for instance, and it's showing X house has, I don't know, 20,000 in back taxes. If you get in touch with that owner, are you like, how do you settle that 20,000 and then take over the property? Like how would you approach that?
So I typically will tell the owner that my offer includes any debt on the property, right? So the owner is going to pay the debt off at closing, not out of their own pocket, but out of the proceeds of the sale. So for example, in that scenario where you say the property owner or the property is tax delinquent by 20 grand, if I offer you 40 grand, right? At closing, you're getting $20,000 because the 20 for the tax delinquent is coming out of the sales price. So that's how I structure it that way. Now, there's some cases where if you wanted to be creative with it, let's just say, for example, the owner did not want any money back at the table, right? They just wanted to get rid of it, right? Or no. Let's say this. Let's say the owner only wanted that 20K, right, at closing, right? They didn't really care about the tax delinquent debt. They just wanted 20K at closing. But obviously you care about it. What you could do is you still offer 40, right? And what you do is you bring the 20 to the table, but then you work out a payment plan with the city and pay the taxes off, monthly. So that way you don't have to bring the extra 20 to the table, right? So you're buying the property subject to any liens on the property. So that's like kind of like creative financing in a sense.
Gotcha. I haven't heard that one before with the making the tax payments. Typically, I've heard people mention the first scenario, but I think that's wow. That's pretty mind blowing, man. So when a property is in tax trouble, do you find that an owner is more willing to sell it at a better price to you because, perhaps they can't afford this to settle it? Like, do you find that they can be more flexible in terms of the price in that scenario?
I think they are, yes. But I do think there's also about, peeling back the layers of pain, right? Well, how much pain do they have? Like really trying to figure out not only, their pain, but how can I serve them? How can I heal their pain? Right. I think that's important to build rapport and not just do it for yourself, right? But you're actually doing it to help them overcome some obstacle, right? So if somebody has a vacant property and it's tax delinquent and it's like, I don't know what to do with it, but I don't want to lose it. You're coming in as their savior in the sense of you're buying a property and they get a profit at the end. It may not be what they wanted, but obviously it's better to sell the property or to buy the property and they sell it to you and get a profit versus like you losing it to the city, right? Now, I will be clear that an example of the tax delinquent that you making monthly payments, that only works if the property is not already up for sheriff sale, right? So if the property is up for sheriff sale already, and it's like there's a sheriff sale due date, typically the sheriff's office wants their payment like right away. So you have to figure out, what's happening with the taxes to see if you have enough time to make a payment arrangement with the city and go from there.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So interest rates.
Yeah.
What can we say about it, man? So much we can say about interest rates over since we spoke. I'm sure they shot up since then in 2021.
Right.
So one of the things we were talking about previously, you were mentioning that the interest rates are having a bit of an impact on your margins. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, whatever their exit strategy is. So can you talk a bit more about how you've navigated that and push through and still try to make deals work?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to knowing your numbers still, but then realizing that your cash flow may not be where you want it to be, right? So for example, if you're trying to net $400 a month per rental unit, well, after you do a refinance, or let's say you're going straight into a loan for that property, because of the interest rate, maybe your cash flow is only $300 per month. So you could be, biting the bullet on your cash flow. But I think once rates drop down, let's say this summer or the following year, you can always refinance again to get a lower interest rate. So I think right now it is impacting the cash flow, but it's also impacting those that maybe are doing fixing and flipping and their rates are higher than normal. But it comes back to knowing your numbers. You have to make sure that you're buying a good deal and the numbers make sense. So I believe in the 70% rule, right? So I would say somewhere between 65% and 70%, where you want to make sure your total project cost, including your sales, the acquisition, and your construction budget does not go over 70% of the after repair value. So once you stay within that framework, you should be good. I think it gets dangerous when you start buying a property, and you're in it for like 80% of the after repair value, 85%, because at that point, it get real. It gets really, really real.
Definitely. Do you find yourself passing on a lot more deals now because of, interest rates and just those margins being tighter? Do you find yourself passing on more deals than previously?
Well, I find myself being more selective, right? Because I'm still targeting off-market deals. So I'm going directly to the owner. So I'm going to the owner directly, and then I'm negotiating with the owner directly. So I'm being more selective, to figure out, does this deal make sense? Because the numbers could have worked a few years ago, but now they may not. Or maybe the numbers still make sense, but it doesn't make sense for me to rehab the property right now. Maybe I'll wait until the summer and see how everything pans out and then go from there. So it just really depends.
That makes sense. And the reason I wanted you to go through that is because people shouldn't, I personally don't think anybody should stop, right? Like if you are investing, like whatever your strategy is, like you got to be able to change with the times. Like nothing, I mean, what's the quote? Like change is constant or whatever. Like
Right.
nothing's going to stay the same. Like the market is going to change. Like locally, nationally, it's going to change, but you got to know how to adjust and how to still maneuver and do your thing within that. So I think even the point you made about buying something and maybe holding on for a little while on the rehab, I mean, I think that's smart, as long as, whatever holding costs you can take care of, it makes
Correct.
sense. But I mean, a deal's a deal, right? So you buy it and figure out what you're going to do with it. So I like that you're still going, you're still figuring things out.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the importance, once again, of buying an off-market deal, because when you get it at a discounted price, you have options. So, when with the interest rates going up, maybe you say, you know what, 2 years ago, this would have been a great rental property. But maybe now, because I see the margins are getting slim, maybe I go ahead and wholesale it and make 15 grand or 30 grand, right? And go from there. So once again, you have options when you're buying properties off market.
Definitely. So one thing that a lot of people talk about is being afraid of talking to sellers, right? So it's easy to have your realtor talk on your behalf and you send the message to them or what you think through them or disagreement, whatever the case is, that they're the mediator, if you will. But when you're talking directly to the seller, can you talk about, so let's say, I'm at 123 Main Street, which I feel is the generic address everybody always uses.
Right.
Let's say I'm at 123 Main Street. I'm the owner. You found out, I'm in a foreclosure or I have some type of distress. Like, how as a buyer, like, what do you say? Because a lot of people are like, all right, I found the deal. Like, what am I supposed to say now?
Right. Well, the first thing is so even before you talk to the owner, you didn't find a deal. You found the property. But you didn't find a deal because you said to talk to the owner to figure out what's happening to even determine whether or not it's a good deal for you or not. So that property address. You may even know the situation with the property that's causing it to be distressed. It can be a distressed owner or distressed property, right? So the first thing is just understanding that you know the information, but you haven't talked to the owner just yet, and figuring out how to build rapport. People do business with people they like. So if they like you, right, they'll do business with you. So I would say number one, build rapport, right? You don't have to start out by saying, hey, here's the offer. No, build rapport. See what's going on with them and try to connect with them on a personal level, and then have a conversation and then understand what their pain points are. Are they tax delinquent? Is it pre-foreclosure? Are there liens in the property? Did somebody pass away? And then figure out a solution to their problem and start from there.
Definitely. What's some of the resistance that someone could potentially expect when it comes to talking to a distressed seller?
Yeah. The resistance could be, hey, listen, brother or sister, I don't know you from a can of paint. Who are you? Like, yeah, who are you? That's number one. Number two could be, well, how'd you get my phone number? That doesn't even make any sense. I don't know you. You don't know me. Where in the world did you get my phone number from? And then, third thing could be the owner has unrealistic expectation of the value of the property, right? They're valuing it too high. So yeah, those are the things,
Got you. So how should somebody navigate? Let's say your property is really worth, as it stands now, 75,000, but you see properties being sold that are in much better condition, but as a seller, you're not an investor, you're not thinking about that, for 150. And so they think they deserve 150. How do you coach them through, I hear you, and based on like reality, this is like what I'm offering and this is what the home is actually worth?
Right. So for me, I have a different perspective, right? I'm still going to trying to figure out what their pain is. How do I heal that? How do I heal that pain? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because from there, once I know that, I can figure out how to offer a price or offer a solution that's beneficial for the two of us. Right. So maybe it is they want a little bit more of a price than what it's worth, right? The sales price is a little too high. If that's the case, well, I can say, well, listen, let's say, for example, in this case, the property as is worth 75,000, right? That's the market value. but let's just say they want $80,000, right? If that's the case, okay, I understand, ma'am. That price is definitely a little too high in my opinion. However, if you want 80, then maybe we can agree that I can buy the property on terms, right? Maybe we can do a seller financing deal where I pay you back in monthly installments and you won't get your $80,000 up front. She could be like, okay, all right, that's a good idea. So now you're giving her the 80, but now you're at an advantage because you're not bringing any money to the table. You don't need to go get a private lender or hard money because now you're paying them back on this, in monthly installments, monthly payments. So there's all different ways you could do it. You have to figure out like their pain and then what they need.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the main thing is like once you figure out like what they need, to your point, what the pain is, then you can really figure out how to properly approach it in a way that's hopefully going to have a favorable outcome for both of you guys.
Right. Now there are certain cases where people are just nuts, right? Where, the property's worth $75,000, they want $150,000. Now, in that case, I will explain that, hey, the properties you're probably seeing for sale are properties that are already fixed up. Maybe they're already fixed up, they're beautiful inside. So, ma'am, you had to understand that these properties that you're seeing that are 150 on the market right now are already fixed up, right? They're already turnkey properties. In your case, right, in this property's case, I have to go in there, do a full rehab, pay my team, pay my electrician and plumber, things of that nature, in order to get it to the 150. So that's why I'm offering you the 75,000. Now, in some cases they may say, "Oh, I understand," but some cases they're like, "Nah, it is what it is," and that's fine. So there is some education involved as well.
Got you. Love it. So on average, how many inquiries do you think you're making with sellers like a month?
Good question. So on a really good month, you mean as far as leads coming in, right?
Leads coming in, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be hundreds.
Wow.
Yeah, hundreds, because as we continue to market, right, you're trying to get the best deal, right? And trying to figure out how many touches does it take to actually get a lead to come through and say yes, right? So as we're cold calling, sending out mailers, I mean, at a certain week we could be contacting thousands of people, by cold calling. Now, not everybody's going to answer the phone or respond to our piece of mail, but we're trying to touch them. And then based on the response or lack of a response, we can go down to the next step.
Love it. And is it you doing the outreach? Do you have people working with you? How are things structured currently?
Yeah, so I have virtual assistants, right? VAs, where they're doing the cold calling, as well as handling some of the administrative tasks. So, handling my mail, sending out offers, things like that.
Got you. So what is your role in the business look like? What does your day-to-day look like? Because you have, folks handling the outgoing, incoming mail, administrative tasks, the cold calling. So you're kind of overseeing things. What does it look like for you within the business?
Yeah. So for me, it's analyzing the deals, right? And then making the offers, right? So there's a certain point where I do want to get into the position where I hire somebody to analyze the deals for me and make the offers, right? But that does definitely take somebody you trust. It also, you have to train them as well too. But yeah, so it's about analyzing the numbers for me, analyzing the deals. Do the deals make sense? And going from there.
Definitely love it. Delegate. So I'm assuming like everything you've outsourced, you were once doing, right?
Correct. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way, but I started out as a one-man band, and as I grew, so for example, right now I have a VA that's handling the property management side of the business. So we have a portfolio. So it's like, all right, well, if there's a maintenance issue, they're calling his phone number and they're going to get my VA, and then he's going to then take down information and then send it over to our maintenance guy. So now I'm in the loop. I know what's going on, but I don't have to be like in the appointment process where I'm calling the tenant and scheduling an appointment and figuring out what's going on. Like, no, like they're handling that. We have an online portal that they use to even submit maintenance requests. Now, sometimes we do have senior citizens that don't know how to use the technology. So instead of them submitting the request online, they would just do it. They would just call into our office phone.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And, you know, I think there's a lot of value in doing things first before handing it off to someone. Cause in many cases, like, how are you supposed to know what's being done correctly? Like, how are you supposed to know if you don't know the script and you don't know what they're saying, or you don't know how they're processing things? Like, how are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know it's correct if you don't know yourself? So I think it's a lot of value to starting kind of small and then over time outsourcing certain parts of the business.
Yeah, that's true. But I do want to emphasize that you can hire somebody that's smarter than you in a certain area, right?
That's a good point.
You know, I'm pretty sure like Tim Cook or Jeff Bezos, is it Bezos, doesn't know everything that's happening in Amazon, right? Like, he doesn't know how to route the trucks, right? for Amazon deliveries, or how to put lockers, or how to build the lockers and put them in front of your local food market, right? He's like, no, I'm gonna hire somebody that knows how to do that. I'm gonna pay them to do that, right? Now, obviously, those companies, Apple and Amazon, are multi-million billion companies, right? But obviously, they had to start with one person and build from there, you know. So I do think it is powerful to hire somebody that knows more than you, that can build your website, you know, that you can tell them, hey, this is what I want, but you're not going in there doing no graphics or, doing all of that. No, I need a website, build it for me. Boom, there we go.
That's true. Very true. Very true. So just in something else that we spoke about was, you mentioned that you did a conversion from single family to multifamily. So we'd love if you could talk us through that process. I think that's really dope. And, you know, a lot of people probably aspire to do, just to be able to work on a project of that scale. So love to hear just all the details of that.
Yeah. So we just did a conversion from a 3-bedroom house, single family, to a multi-unit, which we did a duplex. So each unit has 1-bedroom apartments. So we did some not last year, but we finished some last year, and then we're doing some as well in 2021. So yeah, with this process, you know, it was already zoned multifamily, so that was a plus for us. And we converted it to a duplex, right? We looked at the numbers, you know, as far as us being able to wholesale it. We decided not to do that, although we could have made a nice size profit. Part of us not wholesaling is because when you wholesale, just like fix and flipping, you get capital gains tax, right? So you get a capital gain, you get a tax on it. So although you may make a profit of 30K, let's say, for example, once you get taxed, you might, you know, depending on your tax bracket, you might be only really bringing home 20K, right? Or 21K, depending on your tax bracket. So we decided not to wholesale. We looked at fixing and flipping. The margins were good as well too, but when we found out that it was zone multifamily, it was good for us to keep it in our portfolio, and really had that passive income come through monthly. And also, when we did our numbers, so for example, we ran our numbers, and as a 3-bedroom house, fully rehab, it would probably rent for about maybe $1,300 a month, $1,350 maybe. But when we split it up into multi-units, we found that we could do one unit for about $1,100 to $1,150 a month. So we said, listen, we're gonna do the multi-units. So that is a process. I'm actually coming out with a course on how to do that later on this year. That's gonna really break it down step by step. So it's funny you asked me about that. But yeah, so that should be coming out probably the spring of this year. But yeah, no, it's a real good thing. I think that it's a good process to go through, but you have to, once again, understand the numbers. So if you don't go through the proper channels to figure out why you're even converting it to a multifamily, then you can wind up converting it to a multifamily and figure out the numbers don't make sense, right? So numbers have to make sense.
Definitely. It makes a lot of sense. And so you mentioned that the rent, like, I was surprised that I thought when you talked about like what the rents were, I'm thinking you're going to say like 800 or something like that. But for the 1-bedroom, it wasn't that far from what the entire house would be, which is crazy.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, 1-bedroom units, are needed in Philadelphia because sometimes, you know, people live by themselves, things of that nature. And this is actually my first time doing a 1-bedroom unit. I have 2-bedroom units, and then three-bedroom units. But yeah, I mean, we look at a typical house in the area that this property is in. 1,300 to 1,350 was around the rental income rate. And 1,100 for the 1-bedroom rate. And we're able to get that kind of rent because it's a fully rehabbed property, right?
Mhm.
So we're not talking about some hole in the wall where maybe it is $800, right? We're talking about granite countertops, brand new cabinets, central air in each unit. We did real hardwood floors in each unit. Each unit comes with their own washer and dryer. Central air, central heat, beautiful bathroom, backsplash. Yeah, we doing everything. The top unit has an island in the middle of the kitchen. So now they can do some prep work, clean, go to the oven, cook, come back and forth. So yeah, these are I would say high-end rental properties. Now, if it was a older unit, then yeah, you're probably looking at $800, $900 a month. But these are more high end.
Love it. Love it. What was the purchase price and like the purchase price and roughly how much you had to put in to get that up to speed and just to do that whole conversion?
Yeah, purchase price was around, I think I was like 26, 27, something like that. And the construction was around 160. It was
Got
around
you.
160. So the construction was a little higher than I wanted. And crazy story is that I had a contractor that was supposed to start that job. He gave me a good price. I think his price was at like 125, 130. But when it was time to start the work, he was nowhere to be found at all. Like I couldn't give him my deposit or nothing. He just kind of just disappeared. And then I went back to a contractor that I used in previous rehabs that I knew was more expensive, but he does quality work. He gave me a price of 160. And as we were talking about the price, he said, "Well, listen, the reason why it's 160 is because your former well, not because, but he said, listen, even at 160, I'm not making a huge profit." He said the reason why the first contractor billed because he probably realized that he lowballed you on the offer. So he looked at the numbers and realized that I gave this guy a 125 price on construction, he wouldn't make any money. So I'm like, all right, so and then also the person that I use for this project, I've used them before in the past, and he does quality work. So I would rather pay more for quality work and know that you're going to do it in a timely manner, do it with integrity and have quality versus, you know, cheap, but then there's no quality. They're not showing up on the job. You don't know where they are. All that stuff. So I paid a little bit more than I wanted to pay, but it was all worth it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So you're all in, let's say 190. What's the ARV on that?
So I'm guessing because right now I have to still get it appraised and do the cash out refinance process. So I'm gonna do the BRRRR strategy, and hopefully I can do it successfully. So I'm thinking it should be worth like 250.
Wow, that's pretty good.
250, 260, something like that. So we look at so in Philadelphia, I have banks that will cash me out 80% of the after repair value. So we look at 80% of 250, I'm at 200,000 for the cash out. So that hits my marker. Now if it appraises less than 250, it's not the end of the day. But I'm hoping it appraises at 250, 260. I know across the nation they're probably doing the cash out of like 75%, right, versus 80.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I think so, yeah. But I use a credit union in Philadelphia, and they do 80%. But the 80% comes with a price because the 80% they only will do a loan that's amortized over 20 years, versus if you do a 75% cash out of the ARV, the loan will be amortized over 25 years.
Gotcha.
So when you do that over 25 years, your mortgage payment is lower because it's amortized over a longer period of time.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So how are you funding your rehabs these days? Because that's 160. That's not cheap. So how are you financing your rehabs?
Yeah. So I'm using lines of credit and private lenders. Yeah. So lines of credit and private lenders.
Got you. What tips do you have about finding private lenders? Because I find that people are afraid of that, afraid of asking maybe they have a deal, they have a proposal to put together, but they're afraid to ask for the money. So what tips do you have about asking, and then what tips do you have about like finding lenders too?
Yeah, I think the ask is more about you being confident, right? And realizing that you need to have some experience, right? So you're not out the gate going to get a private lender unless you know somebody that's already lending, they trust you. But I found in my experience that you had to build up, your experience so that we can show them, hey, I did X, Y, and Z, and now you know I'm on my third, fourth, fifth project, and you have proof of your experience, right, and successful experience, not just like, oh, I failed, and it's okay to fail, right, just bounce back, but you have proof of your experience and how you've made things happen and made things work. So I would say, number one, talk to people, let them know what you're doing. Even had some people in the beginning stages, have them come through a project, right? So it's nothing like, hey, why don't you come out to lunch with me and I can show you my projects. Maybe you don't even get them to say yes to lending right now, but at least they can actually see the beginning stages of a project. Maybe it's already framed out. Now you're showing them this. Then you bring them back again a month later or two later, and when it's all finished, and they're like, wow, this property looks amazing, right? So I would say that could be a way of getting people in to see the project and to know that you have real life experience in development. Yeah, and then once again, talk to your colleagues, friends, put yourself out there on social media. If you're really doing deals, don't just do it on social media to act like it. But if you're really doing deals and and you have the proof, not like you posting up in front of a house that you don't own, like, hey, you know, really doing it, I would say do that. Family and friends are always good to do, to lend. Yeah. And as far as other lending, I would look at probably a mortgage broker as well too. Sometimes mortgage brokers have private lenders in their network, and they have other ways of financing. So, a mortgage broker would be good as well too.
Love
Or a
it,
broker
love
in
it.
general. A broker in general. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So, Justin, one of the deals you were talking about the other day was a deal that was a double closing, and it also involved probate. And it was just a whole lot of, it sounded pretty complex to me, and just like a whole lot of moving parts. So I'd love if we could talk about that. I don't think that's a scenario we've had on the show before. So I'd love to chat about that process.
Yeah, yeah. So once again, that was an off-market deal. And so I had to figure out who was who were the heirs to the property, right? So in this scenario here, the owner passed away. Um, the owner the owner had a will, right? But the heirs lived in different parts of the country. So I think one of the heirs, they lived in um I think Boston, then somebody else lived in New York. A matter of fact, one of the heirs, they actually passed away. So now we had to
Oh,
contact the child, the son of the heir that passed away. Because when you pass away, if you're an heir to an estate, when you pass away, that should that percentage of the estate that you are, I guess, given, that should now pass down to your heir, right? So we had to contact the heir of the person that passed away and let them know, hey, I'm looking to buy a property. I already talked to Miss Susie. She's the daughter of, let's say, Miss Janet. Miss Janet passed away. Talked to Miss Susie. She's the daughter. But we understand that Miss Susie is your aunt, and your mother was Miss Bernice, right? So now you inherit Miss Bernice portion of the estate. So we had to walk through that, get everything finalized with that, get the death certificates, get a copy of the will, and then have them probate that through the estate. Um, they had to, so one of the heirs, or we had the actual heirs renounce their rights to one heir, so that way that person can come down to Philadelphia and then probate it solely by themselves. Not that the other heirs aren't going to get any income or any inheritance from that estate, but it's just easier for one person to be in charge of the estate versus like 3-4 people, right? So with that being said, we got that done. And I was thinking about rehabbing it and using it as a rental property, but I had other projects going on, and then the area was in. I was just like, it's okay. And I think one of the main reasons I didn't keep it is because it was a tiny property. It was small. It was probably 600 square feet.
Wow.
And it was zone multifamily, but I understand the rules and regulations around what you can develop in different areas and in different sizes of the properties, right? So like with a property that size, I think it was like 650 square feet, and the lot size was small. There was no way for me to do a triplex or a duplex, right? It was extremely small. So I was limited into just creating a regular single family property. So I decided to wholesale it. But knowing that there was multiple heirs that had to sign different documents, I knew that I had to figure out a way for it to be clean, meaning the final transaction had to be clean, right? So we had to send a deed package to the heirs, have them sign it and notarize it, have the package go to the title company. I bought it outright, and then I put it on MLS and sold it to a buyer. So that way, there is no questions around, well, who's this person on the HUD? The HUD is a settlement sheet. Who's this person on the HUD that's getting $25,000 as a assignment contract? And who's this? No. Let me just buy it outright with my own cash and then sell it 2 weeks later. And that's how we did it. Now, doing a double closing did cost me extra fees, because whenever you buy a property in Philadelphia, you have transfer tax, deed recording fees, notary fees, things of that nature. So I did, waste, in a sense, some money. But that was the cleanest way to do the deal, was to do a double closing.
Gotcha.
And then also I had to pay the realtor as well, to a commission to sell the property. But it was all good because I found a buyer for top dollar. So it was all good.
Got you. How long did that process take?
Good question. I
Roughly.
believe that process probably about maybe like 9 months. Yeah, about 9 months from start to finish. You got to remember, like, talking to the owner, getting the other heirs on board, right? So it wasn't an easy sell, right? Because when you have different heirs, right, they all have a say so. They all, oh no, you should do this, you should do that, or what's this price and X, Y, and Z. So now you have to get everybody on board with the actual number, the sales price, get everybody to sign, right? And some people drag their feet, some people are working full time, some people are on their own schedule. So it's like, hey, Miss Susie already signed, but Mr. Jamar over here, he said yes, but he has yet to get back to us in a week and a half. So now that's dragging a long time, right? Then title company has to get involved and do paperwork and all this. So yeah, it took about 9 months, but it was well worth it. So that's why I say any investor or any person that's going to go after off-market deals, you have to have thick skin and know to be patient. Some deals happen, in 2 months, 3 months, but other deals, 9 months, could be a year. But the good thing I found as well is that typically when those deals happen over the course of 9 months, how you valued the property 9 months, not 9 months ago, right? Now the property is worth more because the market has shifted, right? So now where you thought it was only worth 50 grand, right, back in January, is now September, and now it's worth 65 grand, 70 grand. And the contract you have with the actual seller is still in place because that's what y'all agreed to. Y'all agreed that you would buy the property for X, Y, and Z. That number stays the same, but the market value is still increasing.
Got you. What were some of the challenges you had to get through, like between the heirs and what were some of those issues on their side?
I think the lack of education, right? Believing that they did not have to go through this process to sell the property, because they're under the assumption, okay, so my mom passed away. They have a will, they left it to us. Our sister passed away. So that means that her share goes to us. That's not true. No, your sister still has a share in the estate. Unfortunately, she passed away, but it doesn't go to you, right? It goes to her heirs, depending on how the deed is written. So sometimes the deed can be written a certain way, where you have what is it, tenants in common, and then I forget the other terminology. It's tenants in common, and then right of survivorship, right? Where right of survivorship is more so like, whoever passes away, their share goes to this to other people. Tenants in common, I think that's where basically the shares are still now given to the next person in line. So just kind of educating them on the process, and having them trust me to believe that I'm not trying to scam them or bamboozle them. Like, this is really the process, and then being patient as well, or them being patient with the process. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I think, people have their differences between personal issues, right? It's like, oh, well, you never took care of my mom when she was alive. Why should you get $25,000? And it's like, hey, I'm not your counselor, right? I'm not your therapist. I'm here to get the deal done. But that comes to building rapport and knowing where people are and connecting with people. So you may not want to hear what they have to say, but you darn sure better listen and be patient and just say, hey, I'm here for you. I understand, but let's get this deal done. Because the bottom line is everybody wants to get the deal done so they can profit. Without everybody on board, there is no income for anybody. And you already know the property is tax delinquent. It looks horrible inside. So you're not really keeping the property. So let's just try to figure out how to work together to get this deal done.
Love it, man. I keep thinking about 9 months. That's crazy.
Yeah. No,
that's some endurance right there.
Yeah, that's endurance. But I would say that one of my biggest wholesale deals was back in 2016. And that probably took me, I want to say, a year to close on, but the profit was 100,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'll take it all day long. And I had other deals I was working on besides that one, right? So it took a year. And I know that as far as my marketing budget, I didn't spend anywhere near 100 grand to get that deal done. It took me a lot of time and effort, but it was darn sure worth it.
Definitely. Love it. So Justin, what's some other plans you have for this year and for the future, and so just some things that you'll be working on as you continue to grow the business?
Yeah, so definitely expanding my portfolio. I have a few projects coming up. This year, I probably will finish one late spring, maybe early summer, and do another one by the end of the summer. Looking at also doing a new construction project. We just went through the zoning process to get it approved for multifamily. So this was a property that was zoned single family. We went through the zoning process to make it a multifamily. So we got approved for that. So this might be my first time doing new construction. We actually had to tear the property down and build back up. So it's exciting, but also, I mean, listen, a little fearful as well too, but you got to have faith. I definitely believe in God, have faith in God and faith in, that he'll guide me in the right direction. So that'd be a project as well too, that we'll be working on. And then continue to mentor students that are new or that may be seasoned, but not understanding the process of being a deal engineer, and how to find off-market deals. So we're going to continue to still build up our mentorship program and help people buy properties and get them at a good deal.
Love it. Anything else you want to leave with the listeners, and also let them know like where to find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, no, I just want to appreciate you for having me on a second time.
Of course.
No, definitely appreciate it. So you can find me on Instagram. Justin is my coach. That's my tag name or Instagram handle. Facebook is also Justin is my coach. I do have a free webinar. Typically, I'm doing it either live or I have one that's pre-recorded. So you can go to masterthesteps.com to register. So masterthesteps.com to register for my free masterclass on showing you how I was able to buy properties at a discounted price without using any of my own money. So that is that, and I appreciate everybody for joining.
Definitely. And yeah, I always enjoy these conversations, and a lot of wisdom baked in a lot of strategy and creativity. You know, creativity, that's how you'll grow. If you're listening, that's how you'll grow. And you gotta think outside the box. That's another theme that I picked up previously. And again, here, like, it's important to think outside the box, always think about ways to make things work. So I mean, that's those are the keys. So I appreciate you expanding on some of those things, getting in some examples of deals and just how you're navigating the times. And you know, I'm very glad to see things continuing to progress and head in the right direction for you.
No, yep. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely. No problem. And thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, leave us a 5-star rating and review, all those things. It goes a long way and really helps us to grow and reach more people. So I'll see you all soon. Thank you again.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.